everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we are back again. It's Tuesday, and we have done it. We've finished up Double Helix, Book 2 of 6, Vectors, written by Dean Wesley Smith and Christine Catherine Roosh. What a great book, what a fun book. Happy to have jumped back into the TNG numbered series. Again, this is what I started the channel on, was reading these books, so always great to be back into them. And what a surprise with this one too. And I don't read ahead, I don't spoil myself, I don't read the back, so I had no idea getting in that I was getting a secret DS9 crossover book. In addition to that, you are getting a Pulaski centric book too. So if anyone out there is looking for some Pulaski centric action, right here, this has got you covered. You've also got some Gul Dukat. You've got Kira. You've got some other interesting characters as well, and Quark, Ram, and Nog all make an appearance, as well as a small minor appearance by Odo. The majority of the book, focuses around Dr. Pulaski and her efforts to solve this next virus problem that they've run into, right? Anyway, let's read the book here. Only Dr. Pulaski can help save the planet Bajor. And again, from the cover, you've got Pulaski, Dukat, and Kira here. And this was a very exciting book, so let's just get a little bit of excitement going here with some explosions and some spinning double helix as we read the back cover here. Like a strand of mutating DNA, a deadly conspiracy winds its way through the entire Alpha Quadrant, just as it stretches across several years of Starfleet history, even to the Cardassian space station that will someday be known as Deep Space Nine. A virulent plague has stricken Terok Nor, striking down both the enslaved Bajorans and their Cardassian oppressors, who blame each other for the growing epidemic. Dr. Catherine Pulaski, late of the Starship Enterprise, must work with the tyrannical Gul Dukat, as well as a rebel spy named Kira Nerys, to discover the true source of the infection that threatens them all. Ba-ba-bum. Cool, very nice, short and sweet, I like it. But again, glad to have gotten into the book without knowing exactly what was going on. So again, kind of cool, the book picks up right when Pulaski is leaving the Enterprise, right? And it actually covers the meeting between her and Dr. Crusher, when they're kind of like passing the torch back and forth between each other, right? And that's when she gets called off to help with this. So now again, this book is part of a series. This is part 2 of 6. In the first part, it kind of took place in the first season of TNG, right? And it was revealed that basically this general guy is out there testing a virus, right? And the first test he tested, it didn't go very well. Starfleet was able to cure that baby within 2 days, right? So this is step 2. A year later, a few years later, whatever it is, we're looking at the end of season 2 of TNG now, and it starts out with this guy's agent or whatever, spreading the virus, or doing whatever he needs to do to transmit the virus, right? So then you have this it's not an action-packed book at all, but it was very good, just a very good Trek book, because the issues are solved via research and studying things and just going back over, and just it's a tremendous amount of I don't know. They really show that the doctors put in the work, to get it done. So there's a bit of comic relief. They do, because it's kind of it's a plague story, so it's not like a happy story, right? So they do cut in some comic beliefs. Some very comic beliefs with the Ferengis, Quark, Ram, and Nog. And eventually that all, and it all kind of works into the story too. So they did a great story, or they did a great job with the story. And of course, we always consult the fantastic book about books here, Voyages of the Imagination by Jeff Ayres, so we can learn a little bit more. And unfortunately, Not too much to learn about this one. They only had a comment from Dean, and Dean only said, "A summer crossover book. I have no idea why I was picked to do it, but it was fun." So I'm glad that he liked it, and I'm glad that he had fun. But it raises questions for me as far as what was the input of Christine Kathleen Roosh. Is there anything on the inside? For Jim and his great crew, Ken, Debbie, Chris, and Kathy. But nothing else in regards to how it was split up here that I can see. Anyway, published in 1999. It came in at a nice, I think, 260 pages altogether. And again, was happy to be able to finish it up within a week. I think I was just here last Tuesday talking about book 1, and now we're here Tuesday again talking about book 2. So I like that. That's good. And we'll probably even be back later to talk about more Star Trek related fun stuff. So anyway, Vectors. Before we get into spoiling, again, a fun Dr. Pulaski doctor story, right? You're not getting a lot of the Enterprise crew. You get like brief cameos, and I love that they did that. This is TNG book 52, but it's a Dr. Pulaski story on a Cardassian-occupied Terok Nor, right? So very cool, very fun, and again, it's it's just interesting to see what they're doing with this series, and it's making every time I read one of these, I'm more excited to read the next one to see, okay, so this is going to be a crossover now with what? And I did see the cover of the next one, and I saw that it has Bones and Spock on it, but Bones and Spock in TNG era time. So, like, I'm already spoiling myself a little bit. Well, come on, that's going to be cool, right? But we're not talking about that today. Today we're talking about Vectors. And Vectors was, like I said, it was a fun book. It made me take some good notes, which is always nice. And again, I was pulled in. I wanted to see how Dr. Pulaski was going to resolve the problem here. So, all right, without further ado, let's dive into the story a little bit more, so I can just kind of tell you guys, the basics of what was going on here. So, again, it starts out, interestingly enough, with this guy who's got like a full body cloak, right? And he's the dude who's in charge of distributing the virus for this general. And he's like, I think he's on the promenade in the bar or something like that. And you have an interesting scene at the beginning too, where, well, not interesting, kind of terrible, where Nog, he spills some drinks. Wait, no, not Nog, Rom. Rom spills some drinks on some Cardassians, and then they all pour all their drinks all over him, and then, Quark, of course, is treating him like crap, just like he basically does throughout the whole show. And, Nog is looking out for his dad, as you can kind of see his character there already, right? So then you get to meet the basically the two doctors on the station, right? You have a Cardassian doctor, Dr. Narat, and then you have the Bajoran doctor, Dr. Kellickton, right? And this, basically both the Bajorans and the Cardassians have started to fall ill on the station. They both exhibit completely different symptoms. If you're Cardassian, you kind of turn green, you immediately look sick, and you immediately feel sick to your stomach. If you're Bajoran, you actually start looking well, weller than you have being a slave to the Cardassians, and then also you start smelling like rot. So that's kind of how everything starts. Then they do give you a brief kind of visit back to Bajor, where you actually learn, before anyone else in the story does, that it was the Bajorans who approached the basically the general's agents for this weapon, right? And it's interesting because throughout the whole story, the Bajorans are blaming the Cardassians are blaming the Bajorans, but it was actually the Bajorans who did this. However, they were not expecting it to target them as well. That was something that obviously they were not prepared for, and was the whole purpose of the experiment, right? Was this guy testing his virus again, and we're eventually going to find whatever the grand purpose is, right? After all these books, so anyway, then you go to the Enterprise. Now you finally have a little bit of the Enterprise. Dr. Pulaski's last day on the Enterprise. She treats a terrible wound there. I think it's like a burn or something is her last thing to do, and then hands the keys over to Dr. Crusher, who gives her a mission, which is basically contact your ex-husband. And apparently Pulaski has had many ex-husbands, but one of them was Dr. Kellick Dr. Kellick, the Bajoran doctor who's a bit of a rebel as well. So she reaches out to him to find out, kind of what's going on, and then he's able to, not right up front because he can't be too up front because the Cardassians don't really want everyone to know what's going on, but he is able to explain things and kind of make her know the infection is bad. It's really bad. It's infecting Bajorans and Cardassians, and they surely could use some help. So they are able to convince Gul Dukat to basically ask for a Federation team. And at this point, he's seeing how bad it is, and he realizes that they need to do this, right? So they call for the Federation team, and that is what Dr. Crusher is basically presenting to, or basically what they present to Dr. Pulaski, right? She is able to bring a few assistants, so you get a cameo by Nurse Ogawa, and then there's also Morvig and Governo. And I don't know if they were made up for the book or if they had also appearances in the show. But anyway, they arrive on the station and they're immediately like beset with this awful smell of rot, right? And she sends the assistants back to their quarters so they can kind of get settled in and stuff. But then she goes and does some other stuff. She goes and does meets up with Gul Dukat, goes directly back to the infirmary and stuff, and then checks, basically gets right to work, right? She has no time to sit down or do anything. She gets right to work. So, and anyway, also she handles Gul Dukat very well too, and I like how they kind of, I think that they really impressed upon this point was her kind of diplomatic handling of Gul Dukat and how she was able to kind of get what she wanted and get things done. And it's partially because he was on the ropes and he really didn't have much of a choice. His ore mining slaves were dying, his Cardassian guards were dying, and he was quickly losing control. And if the Cardassian, government has enough of that and they don't want the plague to spread any further, they have no problem wiping out the station and wiping out all of Bajor, for that matter. So he's kind of on edge is what he has to do, right? So I told you that the Ferengis played a role in this, and poor Ram developed a blister on his ear, which he thought was a result of getting all the booze poured on him by the Cardassians. So he goes and he gets some cream from the Dr. Nor, Dr. Kellick. And however, this blisters now they spread. And Quark is like, "Did you use my ear brush?" And he's like, "Yeah, I use your ear brush, brother." So he thinks it's just like some kind of infection that's spreading. I knew right away there was more to that than met the eye, right? So their ear problems keep getting worse and worse, and even though it's going, like there's ongoing like plague drama going on, it's kind of a funny little bits that the authors throw in there every now and then to kind of lighten the mood between just the constant smell of rot and death and everybody dying of the plague. Luckily, Pulaski is smart enough to figure out a way to cure people, right? So her and her researchers kind of worked hard for the first few days, knocked it out, boom. However, this plague is tricky. It comes back around and it reinfects. So now while they're able to stop the death, basically after a few more days or whatever, these folks will come back and be reinfected. So now they need to figure out what is causing the reinfection, right? So she thinks back to book one. And I think she remembers kind of reading about another plague the Enterprise dealt with that was similar to this, and it kind of felt like a designed plague, right? So she thinks back to that, and that gets her to call Dr. Crusher. Dr. Crusher is able to send her the classified medical records from the first book, basically, right? So she studies that. She learns all about the prions. Now, if you don't know about prions are like little tiny parts of the virus or whatever, right? And in the first book, the prions, these very small prions, came together to form the virus, and that's how they were able to get through various different forms of shielding and all that. So now she's kind of got the key. She's got to look for these prions and see what's going on. Then, when the Ferengis come in again with the blisters and the pustules getting worse on their ears, right? That's when they kind of figure it out, that there's another strain of the virus. And she figures out actually that it started with the Ferengis and then went out from there. So now that she's got that figured out, she's got to figure out, okay, how can we stop these prions from coming back together? We need some way to make them repellent to each other, right? So as she's working with her assistants, they come up with a way to shield the prions. They do that. They come up with their cure. Bing, bang, boom. Pulaski saves the day. I'm cutting it short a little bit, right? Because there's definitely more that goes on there, but I think I gave you the gist of it. Now, what I didn't cover was Kira is involved in this story, but only slightly. Basically, she comes up from Bajor, I think, to kind of find out more information on the virus and what's going on. And then once she gets up there to the station, there's a little scene she gets with Odo, which is nice. It's a nice scene, and it implies a previous meeting, which makes me think that maybe one of these authors has written a DS9 book in which Kira and Odo meet for the first time. Maybe, I don't know. But that's kind of what I was thinking. And so there's some meeting there, which is interesting. But anyway, Pulaski basically tasks her with going back to Bajor to try to track down the source of this, right? And that's when she kind of finds out that it was indeed the Bajorans who wanted to get this, right? They didn't expect it to go this bad, but there was this one, and they even show this. There's a small scene in the beginning of the book where they show the Bajoran rebel who buys the virus, where he meets up with the agent for the general, and this agent promptly kills him and his partner as well, too, right? But now Kira finds out about this. But again, just a cool ending, right? There was no big battle scene. There was the constant threat of the Cardassian fleet blowing the whole station up. But other than that, everything was just research and them trying to kind of figure things out and work their way through that way, which is awesome. And that's what you want from a Star Trek book. You have an epilogue in the end, which kind of expounds more upon the plan of the general, even though they don't refer to him by that name at this point in the book. Anyway, just saying that basically the next time he does this, now he's learned this, and this, and he can do, more, So what's going to happen in the next one? It's going to get pretty crazy, I'm thinking, right? But again, this was a fun surprise for me. I did not expect to come into a Deep Space Nine book in the middle of my TNG reading, right? And this series has been a surprise because of that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where else we're going to go with this one. But all in all, Vectors was great. It was a fun book. I enjoyed it. And again, as a kid, I did not like Pulaski. I was a Pulaski hater. I was like, where's my Dr. Crusher? Who is this lady? Bring back my Dr. Crusher, right? I didn't like her. But as an adult, that has definitely changed, right? I can see now her strengths, and I do like the character more than I did before. So it was nice to have her own, a Pulaski central book, right? And that's what we got here today. And that was fun. So I am glad to have talked about it with you on this wonderful Warp Tuesday. Hopefully we'll be back to talk about some more stuff soon. As always, my friends, thanks for hanging out. Live long and prosper. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good night.